1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some kind of domestic abuse in their lifetime. One person who feels that we are uniquely placed in the salon industry to help people through this is my guest today, Liz McKeon. Liz is a salon business expert. She's the founder of the International Salon Business School, and I'm very pleased to welcome her onto the show.
All on Build Your Salon.
Liz, welcome to the Build Your Salon podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
It feels like we should have had you on a very long time ago, but this is my problem, my mistake, because I had no idea, firstly, that this amazing program was out there and that you were behind it until it was pushed onto my radar. So it's great to finally have you on. But before we jump into talking about this very serious, very important issue, I wanted to just introduce you to the audience in case they've been living under a rock for the last 20 years and don't know who you are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into the salon industry and
Yes.
what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Liz McKeon and my business title is Salon Business Expert. And I mainly specialize in salon turnaround and absolutely love what I do. And prior to doing that, I had a long history in retail and business ownership. And then, you work away in your salon and your spa, don't you? And you just do your best. And I was getting to that stage that I was getting, just time to move on. And one day, my business development manager just randomly out of the blue said, she was counting my stock, and she just said one day, Liz, I wish you just tell everybody else to do what you do. My life would be so much easier.
Hmm.
And I said to her, but does everybody not do what I do? And she said, no, Liz, nobody runs a salon the way you do. And I thought, right, okay, that would be something different to do, and always up for a challenge. Yeah, I left salon work and trained as a business coach because I thought I'd be too bossy. What's this skill? I just thought so. Then I thought I better train as a coach so I'm not too bossy with people. And then people started asking me to work in groups, and then I trained as a trainer. So I now have this very unique and privileged career where I work with business owners on a very regular basis, having a look at their business and helping them. And I always feel my unique position is not what I think somebody else should be doing, but to figure out what they want to achieve with their business
Mm.
and help them grow their business from where it's at to where they'd like it to be. And that could be anybody from working, somebody working out of their box room at home right through to the large multinationals. So I do quite a lot of work and travel quite a bit. And yeah, and just, um, yeah, my love for the industry just keeps growing.
Fantastic. It's a really unique industry in that kind of way. I think people fall in love with it forever, don't they?
Definitely.
And I
Yeah.
think it'd be a really difficult one to try and get out of. And then I'm talking to you specifically today about Shear Haven. Now, Shear Haven, what you tell us, what is Shear Haven? Where's it come from?
So to explain Shear Haven in its context around my involvement with it, if I hate bringing us all back to COVID, but I need to. So during COVID, I live in Ireland, and we had very strict. We had very strict lockdowns here, insofar as at one point we weren't allowed to go any further than 2 kilometers. And like most other people, I had noticed on my news feeds or my social media feeds, business owners that I might know or would have worked with putting out posts saying, if you need any help, just give me a call. If you need me to call the authorities for you, just ask me for eyeshadow such and such a number. And I had been kind of spotting this during the months, but not taking too much notice of it. And then sadly, I saw a post up one day, and it's dreadful, isn't it? Like we work so closely with our clients. We just sort of such a personal relationship. But one Saturday morning, I saw like a really sad post up that a salon owner that I had worked with had put up a picture of a customer of hers, and I'm not saying this now to distress anybody, on a life support machine. And unfortunately, and she said, this lady had 5 children. She had been coming to my salon all the time, and now she's in this situation, and it's not looking good. and maybe if my salon had been open, this wouldn't have happened. So I was observing this sort of thing, and I remember clearly it was Valentine's Day, and I think I was ready for bed at 12 o'clock or something in the day because we couldn't go anywhere or do anything, and I
Mm.
was bored and I was watching TV. And that evening there was nothing on TV, and I was just scrolling through LinkedIn, and I found this link. I have no idea how, to this training about domestic violence called Shear Haven, and I thought, well, sure, I'll do that. So the training took about 20 minutes, and it just hit the spot. And I have personal experience of having to literally flee for my life and go into hiding for several months. And it was a long time ago. But I think when I watched the training, it brought me back to the terror of that. And I thought, well, I can only go 2 kilometers today. And if
Mm.
I was in that situation today, I would be like the woman on the life support machine. I would be dead because
Mm.
2 kilometers just would not have been far enough or safe enough. So I did my training, and it was hosted at the time on the Barbicide, on a Barbicide platform. And a couple of days later, then I got a little certificate, which I have in my office framed. And the idea with the certificate then is that you photograph it and put it up on your social media, so that the brand of Sheer Haven starts to become more recognised. So about a week later, remember that for the first time in all our lives, we were getting our heads around digital training.
Mm.
You and I
Yeah.
talked today. Here's
All of a sudden, everybody knew how to use Zoom.
Yeah, and yeah, and it was so foreign to us at the time. So I thought, well, everybody is doing online training. This was 20 minutes. So the next week on my newsletter, I sent out the details about Sheer Haven and just said I did this training over the weekend. You're all doing so much training online. It takes 20 minutes. You might just save a life. Maybe ask your team, put this on the list. So I did that. I didn't hear anything from anybody, didn't hear anything from Sheer Haven. And I still thought, no, there has to be a little bit more that I could do.
Mm.
So eventually I got in touch with a lady called Suzanne Post, who is the founder of Sheer Haven. She's based in Nashville in Tennessee. And again, another survivor, domestic violence survivor, a salon owner. And she started Sheer Haven training. And she was originally just going from salon to salon in Nashville, teaching the training. Then she connected up with the YWCA. Then they put their little video training together, and then Barbicide hosted it. So that was a breakthrough with Barbicide. So I got in touch with Suzanne and with the YWCA, and then we decided that I could then become the UK and Irish ambassador for Sheer Haven. But interestingly enough, they had been wondering on the week after Valentine's Day,
Mm.
why 4,000 people in the UK randomly downloaded the training and 500 people in Ireland. So 4,500 people actually downloaded the training as a result of my newsletter, which I was completely oblivious to.
Mm.
So in July 2021, then I officially became the UK and Irish ambassador for the programme.
Superb, and well done. The
Thank you.
A couple of things that I want to just mop up very quickly is this is a 20-minute training with a test at the end, isn't it? So even though we don't have huge weeks of lockdown to go through online courses, you don't need weeks and weeks of time to do this. And the other thing that I want to make really, really clear is the training's also free, isn't it? There's no cost attached to it at all.
Yeah.
So you go through the training video, you do your test at the end, and then you get to download your certificate to show your support. So there really is no excuse.
No.
And the other thing I really want to emphasize is we have a huge chunk of our listeners here on Build Your Salon are hairdressers. There's also beauty therapists, and we also have a lot of people who carry out barbering services for people that identify as male. And I said right at the head of the show, 1 in 6 men will also experience domestic abuse and domestic violence at some time in their lives. So this isn't just for people who are carrying out intimate services in that lovely fluffy stereotypically female way, it's also affecting men as well, isn't it?
Well, on the barbering part of the industry is very critical to this because they get a lot of child victims in their chairs.
Mm.
So for the barbering sector to take the training is quite important, and also um, a lot of perpetrators are in the barber chairs as well. So yeah,
And I think the other dimension I'd like to bring to people is lots of people who listen to the podcast are employers and have teams. And when I was doing my homework for this episode, 75% of people experiencing domestic violence or abuse are targeted at work. So they're either getting abusive phone calls or text messages or emails. So even if you don't want to do it because you want to necessarily look after your clients, though I've got no idea why you wouldn't, you need to be looking after your teams as well. So I'd really like to emphasize that dimension to this. If I may, can you just talk a little bit about the impact that in your personal experience? I don't want to go into the details of your personal
no.
experience, but what kind of impact does domestic abuse and domestic violence have?
It's an interesting one because prior to it happening, I would have just had a very practical, useless opinion on it, really, which is just like, when somebody does something to you, get up and leave. Like common sense would tell you, get up and leave. But the thing about coercive behavior, um, it doesn't have to be physical. It could be emotional. It could be sexual. It could be financial. It could be, it could be around food and hunger. Like across um, so many different ways of impacting on you. And I think this is where the training is really useful insofar as it explains what coercive behavior is. Um, Most people will take 7 attempts to get away.
Mm-hmm.
So leaving is not as easy and as straightforward. It's very hard to leave if you have nowhere to go. It's very hard to leave if you have no money. um, Bullies by their nature, when you stand up to them, will raise the ante, won't they? So when you leave, you're in for a harder time than if you stay. So it's not as straightforward as it would appear from the outside. And also, I think the main thing about coercive behaviour is people wear that that person wears you down. So by the time something dreadful happens, well, in my case, I hardly knew my own name um, by that time. So you're a shell of yourself, and you are generally cut off from your family and from your friends, which is what makes this training so critical, because you're safe in the salon.
And actually, I really want to emphasize that point. In the research that I did, it apparently, on average, takes individuals 50 incidents of abuse before they start to reach out for effective help.
Yeah,
So even before that first attempt at leaving, there's a whole history, there's a whole catalogue of things that might have
totally.
been building.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
is it? What is it you think that makes us particularly uniquely placed to offer help?
Well, I think I think you've already named some of it. First of all, it's the relationship that we have with our clients. And prior to getting involved with Shear Haven, in the nature of my work, I had come across it a few times where, for example, I might be working with a salon owner in their office or something. This happened to me twice or three times, where somebody would come in into the owner and say, "Can would you mind taking a look at my client? It looks like she's getting alopecia." And she would describe it, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, "No, no, that's not alopecia. Somebody has yanked the hair out of that person's head. That's what that is." So I'd come across it that way. Another time, I used to work with a salon owner outside London, and I would the arrangement we had is that I would work with her 1 day a month, and she had a cabin in her garden, in the salon garden, and that's where we would work. And I started to observe this man at the back garden, like literally all day, every day, and this older and actually more mature therapist, in between clients, she was running out to speak to this man. And at lunchtime, he would be waiting for her. And at lunchtime, after lunchtime, he would bring her back. And So I would observe her in a day, maybe 7 or 8 times, plus lunch, going out to this man. And I said to the owner one day, "Do you mind me asking you what's going on there?" And she said, "Oh, that's so and so, and that's her husband. He's crazy about her, and he just, misses her so much during the day, and he takes her to lunch." And I'm thinking, okay, just say nothing today, Liz. Go away and think about this. And what I decided that day was, if I come back the next month and that's still happening, then I have to explain to the owner that it's not exactly what's happening.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a complete and total revelation to her when I explained um, what exactly was going on. And I could see out of the corner of my eye, because I knew the therapist, and I could see her as she was walking down the garden, that her body language and in her face I could see the fear.
Hmm.
And yet he was standing there and uh, you know waving at all the other therapists, waving in at the owner as though he was the great fella, and yeah, and completely terrorizing her at work. So I have come across those sort of situations a few times in my work. Another time I went to work with a business owner that I had met maybe twice or three times in the past, and just happened to turn up on a day where there had been some sort of incident, and I had to help her and her child escape her house, and we had to call the police and get a borrowing order, and that man subsequently ended up in jail.
Hmm.
So in the course of my work, I have come across it quite a bit, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. As business owners, we have a responsibility to our teams as well, haven't we, to keep them safe? So that's where the training, I think, really helps. But I think the relationship that we have with our clients is just so special, and because we, on a different note, sort of physically handle our clients,
Hmm.
you can see bruising, you can see all these things, and if there's a pattern to it,
Hmm.
um, yeah, then we do see it. But that relationship is so important, isn't it? Because your clients, we not just the bad news, but we hear all the good news and the weddings and the babies and the
Hmm.
divorces and the engagements and the affairs,
Hmm.
and the everything.
Yeah.
So we go on a very, very, very special journey. And if I go back to COVID, I think the biggest thing that came out of COVID for me and at the end of 2020 was so many hairstylists and people in the hair sector particularly said to me, "Liz, I'll never just say I'm just a hairdresser again. I never do. I'm so much more than a hairdresser." And I was just like, why did it take a pandemic for you to understand how important you are in your clients' lives? So I think we're in a very privileged, strange, positive way, great relationship with our clients, and
We
they
are.
trust you, and they know you only want them to look really well, and but apart from that, I think your clients know that you want the very best for them as well. And
I
you know
think you're right. And I think um, I think part of it is because it's a longer term relationship. So we're in a position to see patterns, and we're also in a position to see changes in our clients and changes in their attitudes and their behavior. And what we do so brilliantly is we build very intimate relationships very quickly. So I can see how we are perfectly placed. On a slightly gloomy note, I want to kind of shoot out of the water one of my preconceived ideas, and I thought that domestic violence and domestic abuse was something that was being dealt with, and it was something that was decreasing. We have a domestic violence commissioner here in England and Wales, and on their website it said that since 2016, incidents of domestic abuse and domestic violence have doubled
mhm.
here in England and Wales. So this isn't something that's going away, and unfortunately, prosecutions are actually waning. We're actually getting less prosecutions. So this is something that's pointedly important, and a lot of that increase has been put down to lockdown intensifying relationships and putting families under particular stress and pressure. That then followed by cost of living crisis affecting so many people. It's a bit of a pressure cooker as far as the family situation is concerned. So as far as I don't want to preempt the training, because my call to action today is that everybody does this training. I really can't think of an excuse as to why you wouldn't. But what kinds of things would people be looking out for in their clients? So you talked about some of the physical signs. What else might people be seeing?
I think all the signs of stress, um, those sort of signs. I think perpetrators hanging around outside. I know I've spoken about the actual team member, but it could be the same. Perpetrators bringing them in, um, and the physical sides. And sometimes, it's not what's said, but what isn't said.
Hmm.
An over reliance, and I also think an over reliance on that relationship in a positive way. And you know, I think in our industry we're in a very unique position insofar as we physically handle our clients,
Mm.
and I think we have a higher level of intuition than most other people. And I really do think, yeah, it becomes from that caring connection that comes so naturally to all of us that perhaps people in other industries don't have. But I think we have a high level of intuition and we know if something isn't right with somebody. And I think we're also well aware, not to ask questions, but to position ourselves, I'm here if you need me.
Mm.
Like nobody in my bank or the supermarket is going to say that to me, are they?
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
And again, not to preempt the training, but what can we do? What can we offer a client in that situation?
So when I launched this in 2021, I was nervous about coming out about my own background, but I was also nervous that, all the business owners that I know would say, Liz, what are you talking about? Like, we don't have that. I've never seen that. Um, you know, find something else that there is a need for. So I was really worried that I was just aware of it because of my background. But anybody I met, no matter who I met, all said to me, the overriding feedback that I got was, yes, we have had clients down through the years, or yes, I've had somebody on my team. Um, there's one therapist I know that, I know this is going to sound awful, said, Liz, I've had a client for over 20 years, and her husband has actually cut off some of her fingers, and she still can't leave. And she said, I didn't know what to say. I never know what to say, because the obvious thing to say is get up and go. But she
Mm.
said, I just never knew what to say. So she would have been one of several people who just said to me, having watched the training, I now know what to say and not say. So I think it gives us a better sense of empowerment about what coercive behavior is and how we listen. We're not to judge like we do, this training is not about telling anybody what to do.
Mm.
It's not trying to fix the situation. It's just to say, recognize it, listen, and if possible, have the numbers for the authorities or the local refuge there so that if somebody does say, I need to go, we're not fixing the situation. We're completely way out of our depths in that, but there's the details. That, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And just to re-emphasize, we're talking about 20 minutes of your time that could make an enormous difference to someone's long-term welfare. Um,
Um,
so how do people sign up for the training? How do they
So
find
the,
out
the
more?
training is on my website, which is literally just my name, lizmckeon.com, or the Shear Haven website, which is shearhaven.org.
Perfect. I'm going to put your links and the link to Shear Haven underneath the description for this video as well. And just to re-emphasize, I can't think of an excuse why anybody would not want to go through this training. Before we say goodbye to you, though, Liz, I've always got three questions which I fire away, and I
You
don't
didn't tell me this.
I know I don't warn anybody. Though actually, I think people are starting to tweak now because they'll have listened to old episodes. What's the best thing about working in the salon industry?
Well, for me, it's just, I'm never bored.
So it's kind of the variety that it
Yeah,
brings
so
you.
that probably came out the wrong way. Yeah, yes, yeah, so it's a plus that I never get bored. Um, yeah, and I think every day is a school day. There's always more to learn. Um, yeah, I just love it. Yeah.
And what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever in relation to work,
In relation to anything you like, but yeah,
in
I mean,
relation to anything I like. Right. Okay. This has nothing to do with work. The best piece of advice I ever got was in relation was. It's going to sound really weird, but it's always stuck in my mind. Don't waste 10 minutes waiting. Never waste 10 minutes waiting on dead man's shoes. So in
okay.
relation to inheriting money or wills or anything like that. A very
Hmm.
wise person said to me once, just carve out your own career, make your own life, and never waste 5 minutes waiting on dead man. Never waste 5 minutes waiting on dead man's shoes.
Do you know, we very often, in response to that question, we get the same stuff said to us again and again. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. So that's a completely unique answer, Liz. Well done. And final question. Final question. If
I
you were
wonder if
speaking,
I'm unique in a good way, Phil. I love it.
it was, well, it's great to have some variety in there. And I'm pleased you took the time to explain it because I was clueless. But I think you're absolutely right, actually. And the reverse of that is I always say to my mother, just spend it, spend a lot. We,
That's
we
what
don't we don't need your money. Enjoy it. Get rid of the whole
that's
lot.
what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
people wait so
I've
long,
said,
wait to get
as long
some.
as there's enough to put your ashes in a jam jar, I would love to hear that you spent the rest.
Yeah, yeah, that would give you so much more pleasure, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Final question. If you were speaking to someone at the very beginning of their salon career and you could pass on one piece of advice to them, what would that be?
It would be never say yes if you want to say no.
Oh, okay.
Never say yes if you want to say no. And I think because of our caring nature and our giving nature, which is what makes people really successful in this industry, if I was to look back, down through the years where, of course we make mistakes and we have to learn from our mistakes. But the biggest mistakes I made, where I beat myself up even more, was where I said yes to things where my gut instinct was saying no, was to
Mm,
say no. And I didn't like to say no, and I didn't like to upset somebody by saying no.
mm,
And but inside was screaming, oh, that's not a good idea, don't do it. So I think learn to say no.
mm. That's an amazing skill to be passing on to someone how to say no. And what I've
Yeah.
learnt over the years is actually a very early no rarely offends. It's when you kind of say yes when you really mean no, or you kind of put it off and put it off until a no becomes apparent. That's when people get upset. If you say no straight away, people are rarely offended.
That's it. Yeah. And you've got it out off your chest and you're not worrying about it. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I wish I would have learned that a lot sooner.
Wonderful. Liz, it's been an absolute pleasure to finally get you onto the Build Your Salon podcast. I'll be posting those links in the description. And until we speak again, take care.
Phil, thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And it's been wonderful to meet you.
You're very welcome. So there we have it. My interview with Liz talking about a hugely important issue, domestic abuse and domestic violence. Take the training, 20 minutes. It doesn't cost you a single penny. There's really no excuse not to. And I would also love some of our academic establishments to be brave, start building this into the curriculum. Just half of one of your theory lessons given over to this and made mandatory for all of our students could make an enormous difference over time. Just 7 short days until the next episode of the Build Your Salon podcast. If you know someone who would like to feature as a guest on a future episode, please reach out, phil@buildyoursalon.com. I would love to hear from you anyway. Also reach out with your questions for next week's Q&A episode. And until then, take care.